Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Real Talk. I hope you're all doing well, keeping safe. And if you are new to this channel, welcome. This is a platform for open minded individuals to come together, share ideas, share their experiences, so that we can help each other and try and make this world a little bit better and have some positive influence on each other. And if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, like, share. That's how we reach more people and we try to impact positively to more people. And joining me today, all the way from Kenya again, I have a lot of guests from Kenya, is Shreya. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Fine. What is it? What day is it today? I don't know. Having like midweek fatigue,
Yeah,
but that's regular.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing well. It is midweek almost. I look at it in a positive way. 2 more days to the weekend. By the
Two
time this
days. Yeah.
video comes out, it's going to be probably another day, and whenever you other people are watching, it'll be some other day. That's the beauty of the YouTube world. But currently, we are on a Wednesday, right on Hump Day, and welcome. So,
Thank
the
you.
basically, for those of you who have been watching, or if you're new, my friend Triv and I did a video a few weeks ago. So please check it out. We'll put the link of the video in the description below on mental health awareness. And Shreya was kind enough, brave enough, courageous enough to come forward and to share her story and what she went through and how she overcame it. So before I start asking you more details of it, I've known we knew each other in university, and you
Yep.
you at that time you were like a shy, a more reserved person. So how did that change? I'm quite interested in that transition.
I think I'd still consider myself quite shy and reserved. But I think just given my experiences in the last couple of years, coming out of it sort of empowered me and made me realize that this stuff is just not spoken about enough. And
Yeah,
I was continuously complaining about how much stigma there is around mental health and how nobody talks about it and everything's always sort of shoved under the rug.
yep,
And early this year I sort of realized, what am I doing to contribute to the conversation? What am I doing to destigmatize it? And I just
yeah.
started gaining a little confidence to just talk about it. And yeah, but I am still very shy and reserved. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, at least you overcame that shyness, and you build up some courage to come out and speak about it, and I'm sure it's really important to you. So I want to let start from the beginning of this experience of yours. So when did you first realize that you were suffering with some sort of mental health issue? Because in the video I spoke about, Trevor and I mentioned that there's not a lot of awareness. So you might be going through something, but you're not sure what it is, and you don't know who to speak to. So when did you first realize, and what steps did you take to bring it out or have that conversation with someone?
So I think I had sort of two separate occasions of realizations. The first was when
Okay.
I was much younger. I always had problems with sleeping. So I'd always struggle to fall asleep at night. It would take me an hour and a half, 3 hours sometimes to sleep. And this was an issue since I was a kid. But at the time, I sort of somewhere in my mind realized that seems to be problematic, but I didn't
Yeah.
do anything about it. I didn't, I would casually talk about it at home or with friends, but I didn't quite associate a label with it or realize that actually this could be a medical issue rather than just not being able to sleep.
Yeah.
So, I'd say in the first 26 years of living, I had no idea. I knew things were wrong. I knew there were things wrong with my sleep, with my appetite changes, with my moods, but I didn't quite realize that actually, okay, these are mental health issues and you should see XYZ person for
Yeah.
it. I unfortunately, and I think it's a really good point you made there in terms of people not knowing when things are going wrong. And what often happens with that is we wait till things have really, gone terribly wrong
Worse.
to
Yeah.
realize what to do next. And unfortunately, that's sort of what happened with me. So sometime in 2018, towards the end of 2018, I was very clearly showing signs and symptoms of burnout, which are very similar to lots of mental health conditions.
Yeah.
And even once I started showing those signs and realized something was wrong, it took me about 3.5 or 4 months to get help. The thing that finally triggered the process of getting help was speaking to my sister and just telling her what I'd been going through.
Yeah.
And because she's in the medical profession, in a second she said, here's a list of doctors, you need to book an appointment. So that's kind of when the realization came in 2018. Yeah,
Okay.
end of 2018.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Because there's no, and I can't stress this enough. Even in our previous video on mental health, we spoke about this a lot. There isn't a lot of awareness, and then there's a stigma attached to it, right? Especially in some countries. I'm not going to mention specifics, but in some countries, like I live in Europe, so over here it's quite spoken, it's widely spoken of, and like I got more into it because I became a mental health first aid instructor. I didn't even know that existed, but it's something new, and I volunteered and I learned a lot, and that's why I'm very comfortable and I want to speak about it. But going back to my point, because there's that stigma attached in quite large parts of the world, and even though you might think you have a mental health issue, you'll be scared or you'll be afraid to speak about it. Did you ever in your life were afraid to talk because you were scared what people might think, or the judgments that will be passed on to you, which is, I think it's quite unfair and really, really harsh.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, but I will give like people credit, because I found, when I realized that I had an issue, my first reaction was, I don't want a mental health problem, because I think I myself was stigmatized to it. I
Yeah.
think no matter what or how many realizations you have, it takes a while to accept that a mental health condition is a condition just like any other.
Yeah.
So when I first heard, I myself was stigmatized to it. And I'm not sure, I didn't really encounter many people in the past who were going through mental illness. And the few that I did, I'm not sure my approach was necessarily fair itself.
Yeah.
I have learned now as well that there's just so many nuances to it. And there's so much that I didn't see before that I see now. So I guess the stigma is twofold. People will be stigmatized, but often when people get diagnosed with conditions, they also feel sort of fearful. They don't want it.
But don't you think that's because of the environment you've grown up in? So if you grew up
Definitely.
in an environment where everyone is speaking about it, then that your I will just call it your self stigmatizing won't happen, because
Yeah.
you know it's common. Everyone, like I mentioned, even I keep on going back to the previous video, because we mentioned this, that if you have a normal flu, cold, or even like any other chronic illness, everyone speaks about it and it's normal, and people will be compassionate, and they'll offer their help. But
Yeah.
with mental health, it's and I know you said which is great to hear, that you had a lot of support, and we will get onto that, because I want to share those good experiences that you went through with other people, so that if there are any people watching or any viewers out there that are scared and that are afraid, if you speak up, you will be surprised. So, yeah, let's go back. So I want you to share, like, how did people help you, and the positivity that came out of it, because that is the main focus of the real talk, to get some positives.
Yeah. No. So for me, I think it went in phases. At the very beginning, when I first had my diagnosis, again, because of that fear and stigma, I was very careful about who I shared that information with.
Yeah.
So I told a couple of family members and a few friends, literally 2 friends, and I had made them promise not to tell anybody, because,
Yeah.
I felt like I had this big secret that I need to keep from everyone.
Yeah.
And and they were extremely supportive, especially my friends. I think that because we're all in the same age group, we have we learn things similarly because we're
Yeah.
exposed to similar things.
Of course.
So they were
Yeah.
very open. They kept, they would do their own research in their own time and, check
Wow.
on me every now and then, which I think I'm just very lucky to have those couple of very, very close friends, and family as well. And then the second phase, when I started getting a little bit better, and when I started realizing this is like having a severe cold or worse, this is like any other
Yeah.
illness.
It's serious.
I started sharing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started sharing it with the rest of my friends. So when I started becoming a little more social and when I started hanging out with people, I would bring it up. I wouldn't bring it up, like I wouldn't make it the topic of
Yeah. Yeah.
the focus.
But you would
for the
kind of
whole-
slide it in, right?
But I'd
Yeah.
slide it in. People would
Yeah.
ask me, "Oh, where have you been?" Because I was lost for a few months. Or how are you feeling? Or you've lost so much weight, and I would just be very upfront and say, "Yeah, well, I've been depressed for a few months. Clinical depression
Yeah.
is what it is." And then, what I realized then with my friends, I was so afraid of judgment, but every single person that I encountered, that I discussed this with, was extremely compassionate and helpful,
Yeah.
and non-judgmental, which was really
That's-
great.
Yeah.
I had this one friend, for example, he would just, because this was when I was going through the pits of depression and I was just contemplating, not being around at all. And he could sense sort of that, because I guess I had communicated it to him. And he wouldn't do anything except pick me up every night, take me on a drive for 10 minutes. That would be the only window that I get out of the house. But
Yeah.
he'd almost force me, get in his car, he'd bring his dog with him, take me
Oh.
on a drive for 10 minutes. I'd get some fresh air and I'd come home. And sometimes it's those little things, that
Yep.
make all the changes.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's absolutely beautiful, and I actually genuinely feel happy about that. That in a world of so much negativity, and like if you go on any social media right now, especially with the U.S. elections going on at the time of recording, there's so much negative around us that when I hear these positive stories, and there are a lot of people like that who are compassionate and are willing to go out of the way. And like you said, even if it's a small thing, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
So it's so good to hear. And for anyone out there who's feeling afraid, and they don't feel like they can share this, like you just mentioned, people will surprise you in a positive way. You just have to give them a chance. And I think you shouldn't be discouraged if maybe one or two, maybe not, they don't come through as you expected, because it is it's a massive world. And there's even people out there like Shreya going through the same things you're going, and I'm sure you would be more than willing to help even a stranger going through the same thing, right? So
No, definitely. I think just having walked those shoes, you kind of know, now anytime I see someone trying to reach out for help, or, if I see something off, even with a friend or two, I feel obliged almost to try and help. And I always maintain, ultimately, when you have a diagnosed mental health condition, there are so many things you need to do.
yeah.
In terms of getting out of it, you have to seek help from professionals, depending
Yeah,
on how
of
severe
course,
your
yeah.
condition is. But that doesn't take away from the value of compassionate sort of friendships, because I think, for me, it was definitely those two things together,
Yeah.
and I think people generally feel afraid, even with your closest friends. You generally feel afraid of saying, I've been depressed for the last 2 weeks, because we associate straight away that with weakness. And
Yep.
the only way to get rid of that is just talk about it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. So I know you've mentioned briefly, or not briefly, in detail, which is really great, is that you had a good support structure with your friends. Is there anything else that you can share with people of how to overcome the whole, going through depression or any other similar sort of mental health illnesses? Is there anything else that you can share that might help someone out there who's going through something similar?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. For me, when I started getting treatment, so when I started seeing a psychologist, and I was then referred straight away to a psychiatrist because my condition was really bad. I hadn't slept hours in weeks. I hadn't slept at all. I had no appetite. I'd lost 15 kilograms of weight. So I feel like I
Yeah, and you
really
don't
just...
have a lot to lose.
No, yeah. No, and it was just really bad.
Yeah.
I so many things deteriorated, first mentally and then physically.
Yeah.
So, the weight loss obviously occurred because I wasn't eating. I had no appetite. I lost my period, and as a woman, that's like something you expect to see every month, and it started going away.
Yeah.
Just because I'd lost so much weight, and all my bodily functions were completely messed up. So I feel like because I'd gone through all of that, I sort of had a lot to sort out, had a lot to undo and fix and enhance. So I was very careful in terms of how I approached my treatment. Once I started getting better and understanding my condition, I decided that I just promised myself, and I think that's one thing. Anyone who's going through anything that relates to mental health or even physical health difficulties, the very, very first step is acceptance. Realizing that, stuff is messed up, that things are bad. And once you've done that, you have this opportunity to decide whether you want to prolong the things and you want to get them worse, or do you want to keep them slightly stable, or do you want to get better? And that's really difficult, depending on how severe your condition is. Like for me, for example, when I was very depressed, I was suicidal, and I had absolutely no motivation to get better. So it took me my friendships and a lot of therapy to rejig my thinking.
Yeah.
And then once I did that, I was able to then look at practical advice. I started reading lots of books, understanding the value of a good routine, understanding the value of a good diet, exercise, those basic things that you're kind of told since you're young.
Yeah.
I started being able to connect the dots and realizing how it's affecting my brain and hence my mental health. And so, what I need to do to get better, basically. I don't know if you want to if you want me to get into the detail of what I did.
Of course. If you want to share anything to help, look, this is your platform. It's your experience. So whatever you feel will help anyone out there, please do share. So go ahead. Feel free.
So I guess the first thing that I would say, especially living in Kenya, and for anyone who lives here, and maybe it applies to the rest of the world as well, is when mental health, there's no test, there's no blood test you can do that can tell you how depressed you are, or that can tell your doctor how depressed you are. A lot of it has to do with communication and how you communicate your condition. Because, if I go to the psychologist today and say, I slept 7 hours, there's no way that can be tested out. So the first thing to do there is just commit to honesty with whichever doctor you're going to use. And if you feel uncomfortable, which I did with the first few set of doctors I saw, I just felt like they didn't understand me. I felt like they were judging me. I felt like they were very ready to put me into inpatient care when I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with that. Then don't feel obliged to see that doctor. If it doesn't fit your requirements, then you have the freedom to choose somebody different. And you kind of, it's so unfortunate, but you kind of have to be prepared for that. I feel like with mental health, with your healthcare professionals, you just have to be prepared to keep searching until you find a couple that fit you. And, it took me 2.5 months to find a therapist that I thought was on my wavelength. So that's one of the things that really helped, because then, I started seeing real progress because we were talking through everything. I don't know if you've ever experienced therapy before, have you?
No, I haven't. I mentioned in the previous video I did with Triv, I've been very fortunate that I haven't gone through, of course, during your lifetime you'll go everyone will go through phases of anxiety, stress, but not to that extent, fortunately. But even for me, it's good to know, because you never know. Life throws curveballs at you all the time. So
exactly.
I haven't, but who knows, in the future I might. But you see, now I have this information, and I know people who've shared that have had that experience. So I will be able to. But yeah, continue. So yeah, so far
Yeah.
no.
So I mean, in terms of the therapy, you know, that it's I think again it comes down to the lack of information around mental health,
Yeah.
right? So you do. It's very rare that people know what to expect in therapy, and sometimes when you go in, you might feel a bit of a shock in your first couple of sessions because you realize, okay, you're sitting down with someone who's helping you unpack a lot of stuff that you've sort of just ignored or set aside, brushed aside somewhere in your mind. And what
Yeah.
I found really helpful was, you know, after my first few doctor's visits, you know, when I was trying to find a therapist, I just started making notes just before my sessions, just
Wow,
to
that's really
tell
good.
them
Yeah.
what I want to cover
Yeah.
off and tell them when I was upset and why I might have gotten upset. So you're not just relying on your therapist to guide you, but you're also
Yeah.
giving them the information they need to give you proper guidance. And therapy is deep. You know, you get into stuff that it's like it's like looking into a mirror, like an
Mm-hmm.
honest mirror, because you know how sometimes things go wrong for you, and our first instinct is to like find where to point the finger.
Yep.
Therapy helps you point the fingers, but also at yourself. So it
Yeah.
helps you realize things that you're genuinely not doing well, whether it's for your social relationships or for yourself. So I think that was like, it's hard
Mm.
to accept, you know, it's a hard pill to swallow when someone tells you, well, actually, you know, you were actually a bit arrogant in that situation. It wasn't the other
Yeah.
person. But a therapist is quite unbiased. And so for me, it was
Of
really
course.
helpful. And I'm glad I did it, even though you know, the reason I went for it was because of severe mental illness, but I would recommend it for anyone because it's like it helps you explore yourself.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not the first time I've heard that from other people who've gone for therapy. And what you mentioned, what I took out of, what you just spoke about, the first thing is, and it's maybe it sounds cliche and you've heard this before, but you will only be able to be helped by others if you're willing to help yourself.
Yeah.
So no matter how much other people try, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to work if you're not willing. Like you said, acceptance is such a big part of all of this. Accepting that you have a problem, accepting that you need help, and accepting to learn and grow. And I think this should apply in general life, not just mental health issue. But you need to be willing to let go of that ego and accept that it might be a problem or there might be an issue that you can deal with. So all I have to say is I'm it's truly courageous and really brave of you of what you've done and how you've overcome this, because you seem to be in a better place. And now you've overcome the difficult part of it. But yeah, I don't know, because I can only, I always say you can only learn from other people's experiences or your own. And from what I've heard from other people, they always say that these, especially with mental health issues, sometimes they always creep back in your life. You can't fully erase them, but you're better equipped to deal with them. So do you still have instances where you're fearful, or they start creeping back into your life and you feel like you're going to go down that hole? uh yeah, do you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, I think after my sort of recovery, you know, after I got to a stage where I thought, you know, I feel a little bit better now, one of my biggest fears was that it's going to come again, you know? But then it was explained to me very well, and I think this makes a lot of sense and it's practical advice. I was told that, you know, with mental illness, it's rarely ever something that crops up overnight, you know. You're not going to go out in the
Yeah.
rain and then get a cold. That's not how it works. There are gradual things that happen that lead to that final fall. And what my treatment so far has taught me is how to recognize those things. So a very common word that you would hear in therapy or with mental health in general, I think, is a trigger. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, equipping yourself with the tools to identify what your triggers are. So, for example, for me, I know if I'm going to drink caffeine after 12 p.m., then I'm definitely going to have bad sleep. If I'm going to drink a lot of alcohol at night, then it's definitely going to affect my sleep. If I'm going to do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row, that's 6 days of bad sleep. That's ultimately going to lead to anxiety, appetite changes, which will probably lead to something else. So I think while I have that, I wouldn't even call it a fear. I just feel prepared. I know this is going to happen again because I know I have multiple triggers. For me, anything that requires delivery, whether it's a project, a business, a little thing for a friend, anything where I have to deliver something, I attach a lot of pressure to it because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and it's something that I'm working on. So I know those things can't be avoided. There are going to be big milestones in my life in the future, some of which will be stressful, and I can't get rid of them. And I think that's the thing. Many of your triggers, you may not be able to get rid of them, but if you can see them for what they are, then you're kind of prepared. Now, if I'm starting a big project at work or starting something of my own, whatever it is, what I will do before I get into that is just work out my fears. I literally write down a whole list of things that I'm panicking about, sleep on it, read it the next day and realize, cut it down because most of them are totally baseless. When you're scared, you don't think in a rational manner. And just doing that, just being really dedicated to your wellness is really, really important. And that's why I'm saying I don't, well, hopefully I'll be able to manage it for the rest of my life, but I don't fear it. I feel prepared is all. I feel like if it comes, because I've just decided in my head that I want to live well, both physically and mentally. So whatever comes my way, from my experience, I kind of feel like I've got the tools, and if I don't, I'll learn the tools to come out of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great way of looking at it, and I'm really glad and happy that you have found the tools, and you are in a position that even when those triggers come along, you'll be able to handle them very well. So thank you, Shreya, so much for sharing that. And I know, and you have worked through it, and you have come to a place where you're comfortable speaking about it, and I'm really, really glad about that. And I hope whoever is watching out there, you can take something from her experience. And if you don't have the family or the friends support, you can get in touch with me. We will share all our information in the description below. And if you want to speak to Shreya, I can get you in touch with her. So don't ever feel like you're alone. We might be strangers, but we are there to help each other, and that's what this platform is all for. So if you don't have that support structure, you can always find one. There's many people going through the same issues that you are. Us as human beings sometimes, and I don't blame us, because when you're in that place and you're afraid, you think you're all alone and that no one can help you, right? And that no one's going through what you are going through. But that's as far from the truth as possible. We're 8 billion people in this world. Trust me, someone else out there is going through the same things you are. You just have to find ways or mediums or channels to reach out, and the courage, just build a little bit of courage, and hopefully, you'll find people out there who can help you out. So thank you so much, Shreya. It was a real pleasure having you and talking about your experience.
Thank you for having me. And I think what you guys are doing is great. And, hopefully in, 5 years' time, we wouldn't be worrying. We wouldn't be associating the word stigma with mental health. But yeah.
I hope so too. And it is changing. I can see a difference, and hopefully it will continue on that trajectory. So thank you once again, and thank you, viewers. Thank you, all of you out there. We're almost up to 100 subscribers. So I genuinely thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting the channel, for the views. And please leave a comment. If you want to come on and share your experience, you're more than welcome to. We'll have all our information in the description. And please take care of your mental health, of the people around you, and be a bit more attentive, pay attention, and show care and love, because we are going through some tough and challenging times. through this pandemic, and mental health will be spoken more and more about because it will be a massive factor coming into play as we go through this pandemic. So take care, everyone, and hope to see you all very, very soon.